Trevor Lawrence needs labrum surgery. Telvin Smith hints at maybe wanting to come back into the NFL. And Tony Boselli once again snubbed from the NFL Hall of Fame.
Jacksonville Jags, you know how we ball. Best believe it, got the people screaming out, Duval. Okay, Jacksonville Jaguars, too much for your crew to handle. Keep it lit, and this is the #1 YouTube channel by UCF Jaguar. Yeah, we about to blast off. If you've been a fan, then this is the dopest.
So really interesting news came out this weekend, really like eyebrow raising news, and that is that Trevor Lawrence is going to need surgery on his labrum. Now his labrum is basically a cartilage inside of the shoulder, and it'll put him out for, I guess, a few months. But the greatest thing about this is that it's in his non-throwing shoulder, and it's really not impacting him enough where he's not going to be throwing. I mean, he did announce that on February 12th, he's going to be basically throwing for NFL teams. So his guy is his quarterback trainer is Jordan Palmer, who's worked with a lot of NFL quarterbacks. So he's going to have kind of a pro day type of a day where, you know, Jordan Palmer goes out there with the wand and kind of makes him move around, throws off some different, you know, rolls left, rolls right, drops back, just all this different kind of stuff. And it's going to be pretty much scripted, much like a pro day. So he's going to do this, and getting this surgery early will basically allow him to be 100% ready by training camp, which would start in late July. So this will put him out of the NFL Combine, which, like Combine, no one really knows what it's going to look like. Obviously, it's not going to be anything like it has been really every year besides this year. I mean, even last year, this whole thing wasn't going on around February when the Combine usually takes place. And he also won't be competing in his pro day. So this really did raise a lot of questions to me. One, it raised, okay, he's throwing for NFL teams. Are we going to be able to live stream this? Are we going to be able to see any of this? I know a lot of time, obviously the Combine, you're able to watch as fans, and also pro days. Generally, it's up to the school, but a lot of times schools will live stream it. I remember in 2014, being a big UCF guy, I remember watching Blake Bortles in his pro day. They live streamed it all. He was actually with Jordan Palmer too, so I'm pretty familiar with kind of what it looks like, but it was pretty cool. But hopefully this is something that's live streamed. I don't know if it will be, just because it's not going to be a team hosting it. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence, so I don't know if they're going to really have the equipment out there to really do that. And another thing I've wondered, is there going to be a media availability? Like, will he be speaking in front of a panel of people, or is he going to be holding kind of private interviews with whatever team kind of requests him? It'll be interesting. But another thing I wonder is, can the Jaguars interject? I know right now you have to say all the right things of, oh, we have a tough decision to make a quarterback. We're going to have to do a lot of homework. But we all know. I mean, we all know. Everybody knows that when they say that to the media, they're lying to your face, because that's what they have to say. And that's one reason why media can drive me nuts, because you just get filtered version. You don't normally get the truth. You get whatever they want to tell you. And a lot of times with media, or when players or coaches are available to media, when they ask a question, you can pretty much answer it for them. Answer exactly how they're going to answer. So this is one interesting thing. Now, me personally, I have zero concerns with it all. I guess I like that he's getting this done early, so training camp he'll be ready to roll. Who knows what OTAs and mini camps will look like? I mean, you would think after this year, with really them not having to cancel any games, that they'd be able to do kind of mini camps and whatnot, but maybe it's too hard to bring all these people into Jacksonville, do all this testing, you know, for this minimal contact type of thing. So, you know, I'd imagine it's going to be similar to last year until this whole entire pandemic stuff is over. So that was interesting news, really, with the Jaguars, but and Trevor Lawrence. But we'll kind of monitor this going forward. But he's going to have labrum surgery on his non-throwing shoulder, but it's not significant enough to where he's not going to be throwing for NFL teams. Now, this next one also kind of came up out of nowhere, but this one came up with a former Jaguar player, Telvin Smith. He put out a tweet that said, quote, "I think it's time," which people analyze in all different ways. I mean, I hate cryptic tweets so much, because it's like, okay, what do you want us to make out of it? Telvin, you could have just gone out there and said, I want to play next year. You know, I want to start preparing myself. Instead, now people had to take what he says and kind of runs with it. So who knows if he's trolling? Who knows what he's doing? I know if I was a player, I might put out some trolling tweets just to, rile people up. But he kind of said this. So really, when you look at Telvin Smith's timeline, in 2019, after Coughlin called him out, basically saying that there's no during OTAs, voluntary OTAs. He said there's no reason why players shouldn't be here. I'm kind of paraphrasing. He basically said that it's selfish for you to not be here. Every player should be in attendance, and there are only 2 players not in attendance. That was Jalen Ramsey and Telvin Smith. Now, Jalen Ramsey had his own excuse out of it, and he doesn't usually show up to these mini camps just because he has his own kind of workout procedures. And in the past there's been guys like Maurice Jones-Drew, guys like that didn't show up, but now with the Twitter world, it's a lot more exposed and stuff like that. But the thing about Telvin Smith was they weren't really hearing from him. He wasn't communicating with coaches. Nobody knew his whereabouts. And then within a week of Coughlin actually saying this to media, he abruptly announced that he was going to retire. And I was like, look, I think Telvin Smith will come back. I think he needs a few months to kind of stay off the grid, and then he'll come back. He didn't come back in 2019. Then the next bit of news we heard about him was in 2020, where he was arrested. He was arrested on a couple charges. One charge was sexual conduct with a minor, and then about a month or 2 later, he was charged with animal neglect. Now, these are a couple of pretty indefensible charges. I mean, it wasn't like drug charges. It wasn't anything like that. I mean, it's really, really hard to defend sexual conduct with a minor and then animal neglect. I mean, I know there's different kind of ways you can twist it. Maybe the girl was, 17. Maybe she was being provocative toward him, this kind of stuff. But, on the surface, these are really, really horrible charges. So it's going to be hard for him to come back. Number one, just with these legal charges. Where is he at with these legal charges? Has he gotten better? I mean, these charges came less than a year ago. So we'll have to monitor really that to see kind of where that goes. And also the second thing is that he hasn't played football in 2 years. And who knows what kind of shape he's staying in. It's very hard to take a break and then come back. There have been players that take 1 year breaks. Guys recently like Rob Gronkowski, guys like Jason Witten. Also, Le'Veon Bell, as we all know, when he took his little thing from the Steelers where he wanted more money, then signed on with the Jets. But it's very, very rare. But he hasn't played in 2 whole years, so who knows what kind of shape he's in. He's always been an undersized guy. He's really relied on his speed. Is his speed still there? I think he's 29 years old, so, naturally you would think that if he's not working every day that the speed will decline. And even if you're a percentage slower than he used to be, every NFL is a game of inches, man. It's tough if he hasn't played in 2 years. And the third reason why it might be hard for him to come back to the Jaguars is the fact that when you look at the Jaguars roster, as it stands right now, you can pretty much pin needs at every single position. Right now, we need a quarterback. As it stands right now, obviously we're getting Trevor Lawrence, so we need quarterback, we need wide receiver, we need tight end, we need an offensive line, maybe another running back, we need defensive backs, defensive line, but the one position that seems to be solid is a linebacker position. As we all know, Jaguars and NFL teams play in nickel coverage over 70% of the time, meaning that there's 5 defensive backs and only 2 linebackers. And the linebacker spot with Myles Jack and Joe Schobert seem pretty solid. It does not seem like they have a need right there. So just for that fact, if Telvin Smith comes back to the Jaguars, he's a backup. And you would think that if he comes back, he needs a fresh breath of life somewhere else. Maybe he goes to those well-run teams that we talk about, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Saints, a team that can bring him in, maybe slow him into the process and see if they can get anything out of him. But it's going to be hard for Telvin, really, for those reasons. I don't see him coming back. Maybe he comes back somewhere else on a veteran minimum deal, but it's just very, very hard for him to come back. And this tweet was annoying because everybody was asking me about it, but these are my thoughts. I think it's a very, very far-fetched thing. I hate cryptic tweets, and I just don't see Telvin Smith coming back. Now, the last bit of news that we have is that Jaguars left tackle Tony Boselli has once again been snubbed from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Yesterday they made their decisions. It looks like the class of 2021 will include Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson, Drew Pearson, Alan Faneca, Bill Nunn, John Lynch, and Tom Flores. So these guys are going to be the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And once again, for the 5th year in a row, Tony Boselli is snubbed from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, obviously, there's two things working against Tony Boselli. The one is being the Jaguar, obviously on the Jaguars. Jaguars have no players in a Hall of Fame. Small market. A lot of people don't really look to Jacksonville, unfortunately, for different things like this, whether it be Pro Bowl, All-Pro kind of stuff. It's just not, Jacksonville is not a place where people really look at. And also longevity. Obviously, when you look at kind of Tony Boselli's history, he had 6 great seasons with the Jaguars. So he had pretty much 6 years of really good NFL production. He made 5 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros during those years, and he obviously was on a few different playoff teams. But it's a big argument about longevity. Like, is 6 years enough to really get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? You know, it's definitely a question, and so far it has proved that it is not good enough to get in. But I think the biggest thing that drives me nuts about just the whole Pro Bowl snubbing of Tony Boselli is that all the media and all the fans, all the focus right now is on getting Tony Boselli in. And I feel like with this whole process, Fred Taylor is getting completely disrespected. You know what I mean? Fred Taylor is 100% deserving to get into the Hall of Fame. I think maybe even more deserving than Tony Boselli because, first of all, he has the longevity. He has spent several years in the NFL and had a lot of productive seasons. And when you look at him, he's 17th all-time in rushing yards. You know, and every single player in front of him is in the Hall of Fame outside of Adrian Peterson and Frank Gore, who are still active in the NFL, and you would pretty much pencil them in for getting in. So every single player in front of Fred Taylor in all-time rushing yards is in a Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? I think 100% Fred Taylor, that should be the focus, man, because Tony Boselli, there's a real argument about the longevity. Obviously, as Jaguar fans, we like to say, oh, longevity, it doesn't matter. You know, he should still get in, you know, and everything. You know, we can have that argument, but there's no argument with Fred Taylor. There's no argument about longevity because he has it. There's no argument about his level of play, because the numbers speak for itself, man. 17th all-time in rushing yards, and every player in front of him, and there's a few players behind him. Like, I think there's like 3 players behind him in rushing yards, all-time rushing yards, that are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but not Fred Taylor, man. I wish we could start focusing on getting him in, because I'm getting tired of the really Tony Boselli stuff, and maybe it's because I didn't live through the Tony Boselli era. I mean, I guess I lived in it, but, you know, his last year, productive year with the Jaguars, was in 2000. I was 6 years old in 2000, so I didn't live through the Tony Boselli days. But I mean, I've seen Fred Taylor. The guy was an animal, and he's 100% deserving of getting in a Pro Football Hall of Fame. But nobody in the media talks about it. In the Jacksonville media, the people who have the loudest voices, nobody talks about it because they're all buddy with Tony Boselli. Obviously, Tony Boselli is very active in, you know, the Jacksonville media role. You know, he does radio, he does all these different stuff for the team website, but nobody, all the media, they all love him and they all have relationship with Tony Boselli, so they're all focused on that. But I think the focus needs to be really on Fred Taylor, because he's got everything it needs, you know what I mean? And I'm tired of not having any Jaguars in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I want to see one of these guys get in. Hopefully Tony Boselli eventually gets in so we can start focusing on Fred Taylor getting into the Hall of Fame. Those are kind of my thoughts on that situation. Those are kind of my thoughts on the situation. Let me know what you guys think, and just big shout out to all the members of the channel for your continued support. You guys are the absolute best. And with all that said, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. You guys watched the whole video, really appreciate that. You guys can subscribe to the channel for the best source of Jaguars news on the YouTube platform. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at UCF_Jaguar, and you can become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month for exclusive channel content. Thank you guys, and go Jags.
Jacksonville Jags, you know how we ball. Best believe it, got the people screaming out Duval.